Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome, welcome, and welcome indeed. We're very glad to have you with us. We know about the peculiarity in the country right now, and we're very glad that you all could make out the time to be with us today. So welcome. This is Talking Trade and Investment Global webinar series in collaboration with Business Day, and we're excited to bring you the August edition of our policy intervention series. My name is Fumi Adebote. I'm one of the team, one of the Talking Trade team, and it's my honor to be the host of this webinar today. Very important conversation that we will be looking at today. As you saw on the flyer a few minutes ago, the topic is Nigeria's agricultural sector, balancing domestic consumption needs against international trade opportunities. It's not speculation that the people are hungry. There is hunger in the land. And what does that really mean? Is it because we are not producing a lot? Is it because of some other issues? And if there is hunger in the land, how then can we talk about exporting? What's the basis? What exactly is the basis for us to say we want to export? What does that mean for our economy? These and many more is what we'll be looking at on today's edition of this policy intervention series, brought to you by Talking Trade and Investment Global in collaboration with our partners or our collaborators, Business Day. And we're very excited to see many of you join in. Feel free to share the link with your friends, with your contacts, and let them know that we are about to begin. We'll also be sharing, this space is being recorded, just so you know that, and we will be sharing live on our Facebook feed also. But before we go, I will put up a poll just to see, just to get to know your thoughts, get to know your views about what do you think about food security in connection with exportation, in connection with policy, which is what this policy intervention series focuses on. So I'm going to launch this poll, and in just a few seconds, just tick one of the options that you see there, just to get a feel of what you think. The first, do you think exporting food will worsen Nigeria's food crisis? And there are three options right there for you to choose one of them. And the second, do you think many of the current government policy is supporting improved agricultural production? There are also three options right there. Just a few seconds more for us to do that, and we will proceed with the conversation today. Welcome once again. Interesting. I'm going to end the poll right now, and we can see what the result looks like. So many people think that food exportation will not worsen the Nigerian food crisis. 63% of you think that, and it's very interesting to see that. And we see some people who are not sure. We hope that from today's webinar, you'll be able to learn more about this. For the second question, it is also believed by 56% of the people in the room right now that some of the policies we have support food production. And that's really interesting. So how exactly are these policies working? Are there cases where these policies can be improved? These are also part of what we will be looking at today. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We know it's a Saturday. We know it's a time when many more people will rather be doing other things. So we are really, really privileged and excited to have you with us. We'll take this moment to say we are live also on Facebook. This meeting is also recorded, and this is the August edition, as well as the third policy intervention series brought to you by Talking Trade Investment Global. Feel free to use the chat function to introduce yourself, a little bit about you, what you do, where you're joining from, any other interesting thing about you. That will be very useful if you can put it in the chat section. You don't know who is looking out for your services. As an organization, we also hope that we can be this bridge connecting very relevant people together. So feel free to do that in the chat function. We would also keep an eye on the chat. So if you have questions as the presentation go on, we will take them on. Great. Now is where I get to introduce the speakers who will be speaking to us today. As you see on this slide, on the flyer which has been shared, I believe many of you also saw this when you registered. We're very privileged to have 4 very dynamic speakers, but they will be preceded by the lead speaker. And the lead speaker is Mr. Olufemi Boyede. I would love to read his profile, but I will just play in very few seconds his presentation. I hope that will that works better than reading out this profile. And here we go.
Mr. Olufemi Boyede is the convener and lead of Talking Trade and Investment Global Patrick Thiem. He is the managing director and CEO of Koinonia Ventures Limited, Nigeria, and president Koinonia Global Services Incorporated, Canada. He is a certified international trade professional with over 3 decades of experience in the field of international trade and strategy, and Nigeria's go-to authority on international trade and non-oil exports business. He is an expert in global business environment, international marketing, trade research, finance, supply chain management, and a seasoned expert in navigating the complexities of global trade generally. Mr. Boyede boasts an impressive career in government, private sector, and international consulting roles. He is the organizer of the annual Nigerian Non-Oil Export Conference, Exhibition and Awards within FCCA, and convener National Policy Dialogue on Non-Oil Exports. Let's welcome Mr. Olufemi Boyede, CITP.
Stop sharing my screen. Yes, feel free to use the audio emoji. Feel free to say welcome if you want in the chat section. And this is where I also welcome Mr. Olufemi Boyede for some opening remarks before we get into the presentation itself. Mr. Femi Boyede, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sheyi. And on behalf of the joint team of organizers here, the BusinessDay Media Foundation, Talking Trade and Investment Global Technical Team, the team that I have accredited as the world's greatest team. I welcome you all. Just to echo what Sheyi said earlier, we are all aware of the challenging times and the very volatile environment. And so it's significant that in spite of all of this, not only our speakers, but participants still created time and composed and comported themselves to be here today. So I welcome you all and I wish us a great session. Just in a nutshell, Talking Trade and Investment Global is actually a not-for-profit incorporated in Canada, but with tentacles around the world. The idea behind it was this group of individuals who are passionate about trade, the original Tattrick team, deciding that to trade successfully, profitably, meaningfully, and seamlessly, information is key. Following global trends, knowing what inter-country and intra-country regulations and requirements are, getting an idea of prices, of packaging, of standards, of labeling, and of course of government policies in the countries that trade among themselves is very, very critical, especially for the player. So Talking Trade and Investment Global, as the name implies, seeks to take up topical issues and trends as they are likely to or are already affecting trade, investment, and industry across the globe. And that's the reason for today's edition, addressing this very critical issue of food security, and we're looking at it pari passu, or if you want, side by side with the opportunity in export. And so, on that note, once again, I want to welcome you and to encourage, especially when we get to the interaction session, questions, answers, and contribution, that everybody has a voice here. Please, I've heard so many times that talk is cheap. Even though our name is Talking Trade and Investment, we don't stop at talking. As you will see, this event is being live streamed, and we do produce a report, a compact report in the form of a flip book, which we ensure gets to the appropriate authorities, ministries, departments, agencies, or other entities that have one thing or the other to do with the solutions being proffered here. And therefore, I say, feel free to make your contributions. Please, let's be civil. We do not encourage direct personal or personifying criticisms. If criticisms will come, they should be constructive and carry a solution attached to them, of course, in very civil language. Again, welcome, and a very big thank you to our speakers today. They are not only prepared, they came in early. On behalf of the team, I want to say that we appreciate this and look forward. Let me already bring out the Oliver Twist Cup, that we will be drawing on this, your passion and your commitment in the future. Thank you, and I wish us all a great outing today.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Olufemi Boyede, the convener of this event. With no further ado, I'll go out to present our main speakers for today. And this is in no particular order. We're very privileged to have every one of them with us. First is Elyon Christiana Ukiomogbe. I probably missed that out, but she would correct me when she comes up. She's an accomplished entrepreneur, a farmer wife, and mother, with substantial portion of her professional career dedicated to administration, both in the UK and Canada. And now she operates Havilah Brooks Farm in Ogun State. And at the farm, she cultivates a variety of vegetables, pepper, sweet corn, kale, think of all those assortment of spices. She is an expert, or she's probably on the ground when it comes to producing some of the things that we in other parts of Nigeria need on the table in our kitchen and to get our lives moving on. She divides the time between Nigeria and Canada. Madam Elyon, we are very pleased to have you with us. Welcome. You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
Great. Thank you indeed. And moving on quickly, up next is Mr. Emeka Chime. He's a director at PwC. He has about 15 years working experience with PwC in Texas, where he used to provide tax advisory services. His expertise also cuts across international trade, the implication of treaties such as the AFCFTA, the African Free Trade Continental Agreement, and the impact on businesses in Nigeria. He has an excellent understanding of the working of taxes as it concerns companies, consumer services in different sectors of Nigeria. Emeka also drives the thought leadership team within the tax unit of PwC Nigeria, and he has authorized a number of tax publications. He is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and a member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation in Nigeria. Mr. Emeka, we're very glad to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Indeed. Welcome. And moving on further, we're also very pleased, and at that I mean very, very pleased to have with us Madam Jacquelyne Yawa. She's an accomplished business development director with over 22 years of experience. Just a minute, so I put up our picture. And there we go. Madam Yawa is an accomplished business development director with over 22 years of experience, and she's renowned for her strategic vision and technical expertise. She's based in Abuja and has proven track records of guiding executives and organizations towards achieving excellence in strategic and technical domain. Quite a very impressive profile. I'm just going to pick out a little bit of it. Her educational background includes professional certificate in international procurement professional. She has a master's in banking and finance from the Ahmed Bolaji University, a bachelor's of science in accounting from the same university, and she's actively involved in leadership, community service. She sits on the board and advisory committee of many organizations, and she's been recognized for many of our outstanding contributions. We are very pleased to have her with us. This is someone who has been recognized by, GT Bank, Zenith Bank, Guinness Nigeria, and she's exceptional. She continues to contribute exceptionally through her strategic thinking and analytical skills to the development of various entities. We are really pleased to have such influential and dynamic leader like Madam Jacquelyne Yawa with us. Welcome, Madam.
Thank you very much. I am humbled by you should have just done an abridged version. I work with smallholder farmers, long and short of it. Nice to be here. I'm humbled and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome again. And lastly, we have I met Mr. Adigun very recently on his space, and he spoke with so much passion about Nigeria's agricultural state of things as it is, particularly around mechanization and how this can feed into improving our production as a country. Ahmed Bolaji Adigun is an agricultural consultant and the MD CEO of DS Executive Farm Consult, a mechanization company that has interest in refurbishing agricultural machines, scaling up production and maintenance for smallholder farmers. We're very glad to have these incredible thought leaders with us. We will start with Mr. Femi Boyede, who will take a few minutes, 10 minutes thereabout, to make his opening presentation. And thereafter, we would have each of our guests, each of our resource persons to also come up and give a little bit of thoughts around the topic. The topic, as you've seen, as I projected earlier, is focused on Nigeria's agricultural sector. How can we balance the need for domestic consumption? Pretty much, how can we answer the problem of food crisis at the local level? And how can we still meet the demands at the international level for food? And of course, that also has its impact, replication, or it's sort of the impact in our finances and forex as a country. So all of this is what we'll be looking at in the context of policy. As Mr. Boyede said, we understand this is a very topical issue and we could probably get emotional, but let's try to be civil. Let's try to stay focused and just to respect ourselves as we go on with the conversation. Mr. Femi Boyede, I know you're ready for us. Just before I pass the mic to you, I'll take a few seconds to play this.
Would you like to have your business products or services featured during our Tachuk webinars or inside our webinar flipbooks? If so, we have a great opportunity for you to get your products or services in front of a large audience. You can place your adverts to be featured live during our Talking Truth webinars, which we also live stream on Facebook. Our Tachuk webinars host a huge audience from across the globe. Each year, our webinars run from February to November on the first Saturday of every month at 5 p.m. West Africa time. Place your global audience and extend your reach as our flipbooks are sent to our entire database of contact and shared on our social media platforms. We have limited spaces, so make sure you get in touch with us to book your space. Please email femi@femiboyede.com for further details.
And the floor is, the mic is yours, Mr. Femi Boyede, for your opening presentations.
Thank you very much, Sheyi. And let's see how versatile or unversatile I have become as I try to bring up the presentation. Let me tender an apology right beforehand. I have 12 slides here that would take anything from 30 minutes to 3 hours. So I'm just going to try to run through all of this in 10 minutes because we have very erudite speakers and practitioners, especially here. And I can already see that the chat box is growing vibrant. People have a lot to say. So I just speak straight to the slides. Of course, I'm just the want to prompt the discussion. So mine is just more or less like an energizer. So let's go. Nigeria's agricultural sector is connected to its economic growth.
Can you make it full screen? Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. So Nigeria's agricultural sector is connected to its economic growth. It provides employment, contributes to GDP, ensures food security, and improves the value of the naira to dollar exchange. There is no gainsaying that fact. Outside crude oil, once we are now looking, although crude oil accounts for over 80%, probably 92% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings and contributes more than 70% of GDP. Once you come to the other side, until recently, agricultural sector was the natural second to oil. And of course, it counted before the advent of oil, Nigeria was an agri-led economy. So with Nigeria's population expected to surpass 400 million by 2050, increasing agricultural productivity is essential to ensure food security, national growth, and improved finances. Consumers' buying power and access to nutritious food is currently strained, and export is threatened due to rising inflation and socio-economic challenges. So this presentation looks at the export potentials and then the desirability or not. That's actually the focus of today's session. People say ban export of agricultural products, especially foods, in order to ensure availability locally. About 48 hours ago, I'm sure a lot of you read, government threw open the borders. So zero import duty importation of foods just to ensure food sustainability. So if you put this side by side with the vast opportunities in export that agri holds for Nigeria, what are we really promoting? Do we want to, as Yorubas would say, I don't know how to translate that directly, we want to eat with 10 fingers in our mouth, want to produce and pack everything, put in our mouth so that our tummies can be full. What happens after that? How will that impact on our very aggressive drive for more foreign exchange and for a stronger naira to dollar value? So it's actually the food export ban or encourage export to get foreign exchange. There's no doubt that the success of Nigeria's agricultural sector export will definitely improve our financial status as a country. But for this to happen, We must be able to develop value chains for products, meet international quality standards, diversify export markets beyond oil. To increase agricultural production capacity, policy pathway should be clear. It definitely is not that right now. Agricultural mechanization is a must, especially confronted with the banditry, the kidnapping, I've forgotten the title of that James Hadley case. Okay, want to stay alive. The Poctoholo concept, where farmers are now made to contribute ransom in advance. If you want to plant, you want to be the one that harvested what you planted, you have to pay some kind of security fee to the people who are around you and making life so difficult. So that brings up also the question of affordability. So the fact that we now say, if we said no more export of foods, does that make what is available locally affordable by the citizen? I gave an illustration of how I bought 10 tubers of yam in Giri in Abuja just 2 Saturdays ago for 45,000 naira. Yam is supposed to be a basic food for where I'm from Ekiti State, my wife is from Benue State. So we are supposed to be a yam eating family. So if we spend 45,000 of our 70,000 basic minimum wage buying 10 tubers of yam that will last for a family of 6, probably last 5 days, what happens? And if yam is a staple food, which it is in some parts of Nigeria, how many people can now begin to afford to eat yam? So these are the things that our speakers will help us to be looking at today. So we try to take some case studies. In Gambia, very near us there, Gambia is a West African country that has less than 3 million population. There is a company there that has been in agricultural production since 1972. They have adopted greenhouse agriculture. They produce bell pepper, they produce rodo, tatase, some cucumber. 97% of what they produce is exported. And that is not exported is just because they fail the international quality standards. Maybe the fruits are smaller than expected. Maybe the colors don't come out uniform. 3% is sold locally. That has not stopped Gambia from exporting. Ghana not only exports yam, Ghana took a deliberate approach at exporting yam. And therefore, if you go to North America, here in Canada, of course, go to the US, when you see yam in the African store, it is packed in cartons, fresh yam, produce of Ghana. Some of this yam is actually shipped or transported from Nigeria through the borders, Ogoja and what have you, so that they are now put in cartons and sent out. It's because Ghana did what it needs to do. And this is part of the engagement that I think we should be having with NAFDAC. So, export activity, you can have export-oriented agriculture. And that's where I came up in some of the later parts of this presentation. Export production village is a concept developed by the International Trade Center as far back. International Trade Center is a UN agency for global trade. So it's as far back as 1992, 1993, the ITC has been pushing for export production villages that could actually allow us to develop agricultural sector to produce something specifically for export. KLM comes to Accra every day, flies out of Accra. It's not because there is so many passengers. It's because an investor, and I might shock you to let you know that this investor is actually a Nigerian, went to Ghana, acquired 40 hectares of land to produce pineapple. So they ship pineapple out, fresh pineapple, on a daily basis. That's a big business for KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines. That's what they come to Accra to take to the Netherlands. So this is a deliberate export production. And I am of the opinion that these are things that can be done in Nigeria. Of course, on the domestic front, nobody says that we should export and not eat. We need to be careful about the boom-bust cycle in agriculture. Sorry, bust there should be B-U-R-S-T, where you see that when the farmer produces and the market cannot take it, in this case, because of affordability, farmers may be discouraged from going back to the farm next season. Or if they go back, they won't be planting the same thing. So we need to be careful about this, because boom-bust cycles are influenced by a combination of economic, environmental, and political factors that create volatility. And when there is volatility, there is no sustainability. So, like I said, mine is just to kickstart the discussion. And I had mentioned the creation of export production villages. The current president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Ukiomogbe Adesina, when he was Minister of Agriculture, he developed a very comprehensive strategy to catalyze, to aggressively increase agricultural production in Nigeria, including the export component of it. Was presented to Federal Executive Council as ATA, Agriculture Transformation Agenda. And I don't know, Dr. Ukiomogbe has a very, very, very extremely imposing credential. I'm laughing because I wanted to draw an analogy with the profile of Jacquelyne Yawa. And so we have this kind of impressive and intimidating. So I don't know, but I believe that the ATA is actually one of those compelling strategies that anybody would want the person who devises to run. And that has played, accounted for a great number of marks in the interview that got our own dear Dr. Adesina to AFDB. Agricultural Transformation Agenda is not the first time. There was the Operation Feed the Nation. There was the Green Revolution. There was Back to Land. What has happened to all of these things? I think that we need to go. So let's revisit them. Let's aggressively promote Back to Land. And on this note, I want to just leave the stage so that our speakers can look at the topic from their different experiences, perspectives, and lenses. I thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Olufemi Boyede. And I must say this publicly, for the first time, you stick to the time. I was going to prompt you, but you, for the first time ever, have been with you for how many years now? Okay, not to digress, let's move very quickly. Mr. Femi Boyede has set the stage. And this is where we get a little bit conversational. I know many of you are already putting your thoughts in the chat. But before we get into that, we also want to welcome, direct thoughts, presentations. I know Mr. Emeka Chime has presentation, so we'll take him after Madam Elyon, Christiana. So Madam Elyon, please, you have the next 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. I want to start by saying thank you for putting this together. This is my first rodeo here, and I'm enjoying it so far. So, the topic before us today is to discuss balancing domestic consumption needs as against international trade opportunities. I want to speak from my heart as a farmer. You know, um, I want to start by discussing the topic where I want to major on is the problem facing me as a farmer that will prevent me from meeting these needs of probably taking our produce abroad. So let me speak from my heart. And the first major concern we have as a farmer, any farmer on this webinar could tell you that the first major problem is reliable workers. I have a 20-acre farm. I hope you can hear me. I have a 20-acre farm and I can only open 10 acre at a time because I don't have workers. Most of the workers we get are from Cotonou, and because of our Naira that is almost like nothing to them, they don't want to come here to work again. So we are having problems with where to get reliable workers, not the ones that you think they're on the farm, but they will run away with everything you have on the farm before they break. So that's one of the major issues facing farmers at this point, workers. And then another thing is lack of funding. I thank God that I'm able to fund my farm by myself in my own little way. But what about others? We need investors. We need people that will encourage even younger generation to enjoy farming. You know, if you don't have the means, you really now we want to make farming business an elite thing in Nigeria that only the ones that are rich could pump money into farming. And also, I as a person would like a situation where we can have grants. There's a place where we can go to. I won't have to go to a bank that's my kidney and my liver because before they can give me 500,000. Also, you won't believe that beginning of this year, I bought a packet of Efia pepper seed for 16,800. I went back to buy the same pack and it was 58,000. How do I balance that? You know, so these are areas we need to look into: the cost of the seeds, the cost of equipment. The dollar goes up, the seed goes everywhere, the equipment too goes everywhere. So we need to look into all these things. It's kind of it hampers production. If I can't produce food for my immediate community, why will I be thinking of taking it elsewhere, outside the country? So if my child is hungry, will I be caring about my neighbor that a child is crying at midnight? So we need to look at all these things at the moment, you know. And then infrastructure. I was so moved to tears some weeks ago when a friend of mine at Ogere Market brought his cucumber and cabbage from the north, and it rained. So he was able to salvage just 30% of what he brought from the north. So that is where we are at the moment. These are very ingrained problems confronting each and every one of us. And then a friend lost almost 5 acres of pepper because of lack of reliable labor. They took his money and ran away and left his farm with how much can you do as a person? We talked about security. You know, there are people that will probably chase you off your farm. You know, if you don't have adequate, there was a time I had to go to my farm with security and things like that. And then decided I don't want to live my life like this. You know, this is what I enjoy doing. I'm not I didn't read agricultural science in school. I mean, someone that have passion for farming. I want to know what I eat. I want to grow what I eat. That's the reason why I went into farming, and that I shouldn't be afraid of somebody coming to chop either my leg or my hands off because they want to graze on my farm. So these are areas that need urgent attention. If you like a friend of mine that was bringing his product from the north, we have temperature control trucks. We need to be thinking about that. The guy that is exporting pineapple from Ghana to the Netherlands, how is he taking them there? How is he controlling the temperature? Is he getting there? Is he getting there to the Netherlands half rotten, not consumable? So these are areas we need to look into as to move farming. Farming is no longer the backyard farming that our grandparents did. Farming is evolved already. So we need to be prepared for the challenges and find a way of solving these challenges. And then most of us in Nigeria were seasonal farmers. Everybody is on the farm because it's raining. But think about it. We had July break. It used to be August break. But we were expecting the rain stopped on our side 3 weeks ago. So how do we combat that? Irrigation, which is expensive. To sink a borehole is expensive. And we want to farm around the year. For us to be able to meet international trade opportunities, we need to be farming around the year. In advanced country like Canada, they have silos. They have silos when they can buy grains from the farmers and put it in silos. You are not under pressure to sell at that moment because you know that you can give it to the government and have silos where they're going to keep them. So if you want to produce tomatoes out of season, where do you keep it? How do you preserve it? So these are areas that needs looking into, and then we need researchers, technology, help of technology in farming, awareness. We are people that can develop disease-resistant seeds, that can help farmers. We deal with a lot of, I farm tomatoes. Tomatoes can drive you crazy. Today, everything looks good on the farm, but tomorrow, half of your crop could be gone due to one infestation overnight. So we need a place where we could get advice, help, awareness on how to raise disease-resistant farm. I have agronomists, I have consultants that come to the farm and I pay an arm and a leg to bring them. So most people are not able to do that. So what happened? So these are things that could, impair us from reaching that place where we want to take food abroad, where we want to be the giant. And Nigeria, we have the capability, we have the weather, we have the land, we have everything on our side that we could be the food basket of Africa, but we have this problem confronting us. It's an uphill task, and I believe we can do it if we have the resources, if we have all the help that can help us to reach this I'm looking for a better word to use at this moment. So we can do it. It's doable. We can export outside when every other thing is in place, when we are okay. That's where I'm going.
Great. Thank you very much. And like someone just put in the chat, you indeed have been speaking from your heart. I want to say a very big shout out to Madam Jacquelyne for putting in bullet points, like capturing very succinctly all the points you've been making. But to just drive that, to just connect that very, very, very clearly, I would like to invite Mr. Adigun. And I do this, Ahmed Bolaji Adigun. I do this because I know that you raised some topics or some issues that he might want to respond to directly. So, Mr. Adigun, for the next 10 minutes, Madam Elyon talked about raising improved disease-resistant seed. I know you've been talking about GMOs and what that means. She talked about mechanization. She runs a 10-acre farm. How can she run that? effectively, or how can mechanization help to scale that up? She talked about a number of other issues. You probably want to directly respond to some of them, and also within those 10 minutes, make some of your presentation. Adigun, please, the floor is yours, Mr. Adigun.
Thank you very much. I was just so emotional as Madam was speaking because, as I've said, when you see a farmer, you will know one. By what they say, you will definitely know one. And as I always say, majority of our problems are known and the solutions are not far away from us. How do we do it? How do we do it? Everything Madam has said, I've said it, can be solved by mere cluster farming. Even as an investor that you have billions of dollars, it will be practically impossible to invest in Nigeria agri sector to provide solution. I'm not talking about investing directly, like to provide solution and get reward for every bit of your investment because of our approach. And I'll be very practical, the way she has been practical with example of what she's doing. Just imagine, what is she doing? She's just doing, she said 20 hectares. If I divide it by 2.5, that is just 4, if I'm not mistaken, I think that should be 8 hectares. That is the whole 20 acres. And me, that I'm into mechanization, Madam want to call me that, Ahmed, come and help me do my plow and harrowing. And my distance to our farm is about 100 kilometers away. By the time I started asking her to give me money for diesel or low bed to transport the tractor to our farm, she will look at it. It doesn't make any economic sense for her. So definitely she will either go by hand or every other means. And let me quickly say this. The only way, sometimes it amuses me when I see, it is normal because the whole world is now global and we need to talk about export. We cannot be in isolation. But I continue to say that Nigeria is not even feeding itself conveniently. When I mean conveniently, see, the fluctuation in price of food is solely because we are not producing enough. And I will give you a lot of examples. During the season, how much do we buy a kg of maize? During off-season, how much do we buy? And the only business principle that will never fail and that will stand the test of time is the basic simple of supply and demand. If you are not having enough, definitely those who have will take advantage of that process. And she was talking about silos, talking about all this can only be captured in a cluster farming. Even if it is a storage facility, imagine having, like, I'm just saying, for instance, like 200 hectares of tomato farm in a place. And somebody took an advantage of that. Okay, all of you will harvest at the same time and you cannot go to the market at the same time. Okay, let me provide a storage facility for you. I'll provide this, you bring your tomato in, save it there. Anytime you want to go at a price, anytime. Same goes for grains. How many farms in Nigeria can boast of silos? How many farms? Even the ones that we have are redundant because we don't produce enough, not to talk of putting in those silos. So she was talking about cost of labor. You see, it is very funny that even we as a farmer, we want to operate as the level at which every other sectors are operating in terms of way of life and everything. Definitely these laborers too, we need to upgrade their life. And the only way and means of their livelihood is to get reward in terms of royalty money for work they have done. So if inflation occurs, definitely they will definitely increase their price of labor. And mind you, the efficiency most time is less than 50%. But when we started when we focus our energy on cluster farming, and let me give you an example why I continue to say this. I did not just jump into mechanization or refurbishing of tractor, ironing of tractor. I farmed for complete 5 years. It was failure upon failure, despite the fact that my farm to the National Center for Agricultural Mechanization, the only federal agency that should be in charge of mechanization in Nigeria, could not service my own need. My farm to Encamp is not up to 10 kilometers. Imagine if that agency that is as close to me could not serve my own need. How do they want to serve the need of somebody in Benue State or Maiduguri? So it becomes, I planted soya beans, and right in front of me, over 50% of my soya beans shattered on the field. No way. I was like, is this how I have to go to other farmers? So I look at it. You have the same problem. This person also have the same problem. And then I said, okay, maybe I will just set up a farm for demonstration to teach people how to cultivate. Why I buy old machine? Because of funding. I'll have to buy sometimes old machine, fix it, and start giving out for ironing, to the extent that I am the first person in the whole of Nigeria that owns the biggest combined harvester for the purpose of a farmer, not for my personal use. So that but if you look at it, if somebody asks me that he wants to invest in the same venture, I will definitely tell him that don't do it. Because imagine taking combined harvester. You cannot take combined harvester by road. When it is, you have to take a low bed, and you look at how many hectares is this person harvesting. 50 hectares. You are already telling him to pay 2.5 million to take it there or take it back. So it's only on 300 hectares.
I jump in there, Mr. Adigun. Can you also share a little bit of thoughts around this improved disease resistance seed, GMOs, as other people would like to call it? Maybe in like 2 minutes, and then we'll move to the next speaker, please.
Yeah, you see, for GMO, as I've always been saying, I don't have issues with GMO, because definitely it will help in areas of yield, disease resistance. But how do you tell somebody who is not making return on investment, judging from Nigerian factor, to rely solely on seed he cannot replant? So these are my fear. GMO has its advantage in terms of disease resistance or every other thing, but we do not have what it takes for you to get the efficiency, to get the required yield out of that GMO. Now, if by mistake we planted GMO and it took over, let's say 90% of our seed demand, it means farmer that if we still go by the approach we continue to use, it means farmer will continue to be in poverty, because you are not making required yield, and every year in year you have to depend on seed from the seed producer that is not even in our own shop. Probably majority of GMOs are imported. So these are my favorite. And in Nigeria, let me just so that people will understand, we have hybrid seed that the yield potential is as much as 8 tons, 7 tons. But I want farmers in Nigeria, I doubt if 2% of farmers planting maize in Nigeria get as much as 3 tons per hectare. So if we cannot utilize the potential of the current one we have, that we have the capability of replanting, how do we now tell the same people to plant GMO? And mind you, majority of these things are open pollination. By the time they cross, if you planted GMO in your own farm and this person did not plant, by chance or anything, if you are planting maize, it might cross. So you are already taking food away from that farmer, because probably the next year it will not be able to plant that seed he has been using. And it do not make return on investment for him to boastfully say, I will buy GMO seed. But if we have the working mechanisms that will make you utilize the potential of the said GMO, then I have no problem with it. I don't know if I answer your question.
Well, I just wanted you to share a little bit of thoughts about that, and you did. I know there will be burning questions coming straight at you in a few minutes. And I see in the chat a number of people also want to make, I see the comments in the chat section. I see a number of people want to grab the mic and speak. But please and please let us, for the next few minutes, take Mr. Emeka and Madam Jacquelyne Yawa, who have, they are our guest speakers today, and then we throw open the floor and we respectfully then engage further, if that's okay. Mr. Emeka, we are ready to take you, if you will. And I know you have a slide to share, but very quickly,
Yes.
I'll put this up for just 21 seconds while you get your slides up.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Please take the floor, Mr. Emeka Chime.
Thank you so much. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, crystal clear.
All right, so I think I'm not going to spend too much time because I think a couple of the points that I was going to raise had already been mentioned by, I think it was Madam Elyon when she was speaking passionately from the perspective of a farmer, because I've always also been of the perspective that we need to achieve food sufficiency. We need to feed ourselves, before we start to consider exports. And I'm not saying that exports don't have all the benefits, of, helping us with a balance of payment position, maybe even potentially helping with our Forex and exchange rate issues. But I think we're sitting on a keg of gunpowder, right? If you go out on the streets currently and you hear what has been happening for the past 2 days, the recurring chances is either fuel subsidy, which people don't understand very much, or hunger. So I think we need to solve the hunger issue, right? As a primary step before we, even begin to look at exports. But that being said, obviously, my slides are also going to look at some of the initiatives, especially through the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement, that farmers can sort of leverage to boost their earnings. So just brief overview of the agricultural sector. As we all know, Nigeria is blessed, with vast arable land, and agriculture remains the backbone of our economy, contributes about 22% to our GDP, and employs over 36% of our labor force. It used to be the highest employer of labor until the services sector took over recently. So agric in Nigeria is divided into 4 main aspects. So you have the crop production, you have fishing, livestock, and forestry. Crop production has been the highest subsector, accounting for about 90% of the entire agric sector. And so when you look at Nigeria's agric sector, you can choose to see the issues. You can also choose to see them as potential, right? Because if, the government really looks at, the potential that we have in terms of our viable ecological zones. So Nigeria is divided into different zones that are suitable for different crops, different breeds of livestock to be, reared. That's one potential that we can even use as a selling point in terms of attracting FDI. Our youthful population, there were commentary that came earlier about how to actually encourage them to farm. I think this is something that, the government should be deliberate about in terms of, bringing up some of those, orientation programs, right? That are not just random, food is scarce, go and start a farm, that we've been seeing that rhetoric recently. It's really a deliberate program from the schooling system and all of that to encourage our teeming population to consider farming, as a viable profession. Potential to expand the industry through forward linkages. So most of the way we practice agriculture is currently at the, should I say, crude level. Nigeria doesn't benefit from a lot of the upside in the value chain when you talk about, processing agricultural crops, right? So there's that potential for us to, set up processing plants and all of that, so that way we don't just play at that crude level. I was reading an article at some point that says the contribution, so people that maybe export cocoa, for example, from Ghana, the rewards that they get is less than 10% of the entire rewards that can be gotten, obviously, from, the entire finished product of chocolate, right? So, and that's why many of these countries are looking to actually set up, manufacturing plants and all of that can, help them to get that upside from playing in the later stages of the value chain. And our trade deficits, right? We also see that as export opportunities. Now, I thought to just show some graphics in terms of, how agriculture is in Nigeria. So currently, Kaduna, Taraba, Benue are the biggest agricultural producing states based on the percentage of their population, that participate in agriculture. In the second tier, you have states like Niger State, Nasarawa, Kogi, and even Enugu. And then you go down to, Kwara, Osun, Ondo, like you can see, and this data was gotten from Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and I thought it was quite interesting to share. But on the flip side, states that, consume most of what is produced, of course, this will be characterized by, states with high population, high purchasing power. And on the screen, you can see states like Lagos, Oyo, Delta, Rivers, Kano, based on the analysis that was done as the highest consumers of produce, followed by the states in red. So you can see a lot of the states, Bauchi, Kaduna, Ogun, Osun, Ondo, Edo, Kogi, and the rest. And then the rest of the states don't spend up to 500 billion per annum on food purchased. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that there can be a disconnect. And when I say disconnect, what do I mean? And somebody was already speaking to that point earlier in terms of infrastructure. So some of the things that even cause the prices of food to be higher than they usually are is the food loss, wastages, that I think Madam was speaking to earlier. The inability to have those infrastructure that can store and preserve this food to be in proper states for consumption. And which is why it's only in Nigeria that we have the whole, it's tomato season, it's something season, we should have, those infrastructure that can stabilize the prices all year round, as opposed to, wastages occurring such that we can't store for, seasons where they are dry, right? And that's also part of what increases the prices for Nigerians who already spend over 50% of their income on food. And so to make up for that shortage, we have to depend on imports. As you can see, over the longest period, we've imported way more than we've exported. And the gap has been increasing, if you can see from the screen, up to 2020. I couldn't get more recent reliable data, but as at 2020, our deficit was already above 1 trillion. In fact, it was about 1.4 or 1.3 trillion in terms of our food trade deficits, right? And so when you look at how agricultural exports increased, from 270 billion in 2019 to 322, but the imports went even way higher to 1.7 trillion, making us have, in 2020, the highest deficits that we've had. So we continue to remain a net food importer. And, like I said, the deficit rose from 689 billion in 2018 to 1.3 trillion in 2020. Right. So what are the things that we can do in terms of, you know, closing this gap, right? So enhancing productivity, and, you know, I like the point that was made around more research to be done in, you know, looking at seeds, crops that are disease resistant, almost even climate resistant, and all those kinds of things, right? So that, you know, we can have more viable harvests. Supporting smallholder farmers. Smallholder farmers are the backbone, and they continue to need support in terms of financing, in terms of, you know, provision of tools, really, you know, to, you know, support the guys that are the backbone of the country, in terms of our food production. Investing in value addition and agro-processing. I said this earlier. I don't think that we should play at, we'll just have the same problem like we have with crude oil, right? We invest, we extract crude and then we export at crude oil level, but then we then have to import, you know, refined petroleum at very premium price, right? Which we then have to borrow or take, you know, from other sectors to pay for, right? And that's almost the same problem we're going to have if we focus on, you know, exporting, especially exporting at the basic level, rather than exporting, you know, rice or beans in bags. Is there a way we can, you know, add value? That way we're also creating employment in that value chain and getting more, you know, of the potential income. Then leveraging trade agreements from recent AFCFTA developments that have happened in Africa. We see recently, I don't know if you saw that on the news, you know, some Nigerian companies participated in the first exports from Nigeria under AFCFTA. And what does that mean? It means that Nigerian farmers now have access to, you know, a market of about I think, you know, Africa's GDP is about, you know, recent data more than 3.4 trillion rather, sorry, based on GDP, and about 1.3 billion population-wise. So farmers and, you know, other players in that space can leverage this treaty as a way to expand their market and reach, you know, other countries. And what the AFCFTA does is that it removes import duties from exports from Nigeria when they get to those countries, because so trade among African countries accounts for one of the lowest. In fact, the quantity of trade between Africa and other continents is obviously higher than, you know, the trade, you know, within Africa. There are a lot of issues that portends. I don't know if you saw on the news, I think it was Dangote that was speaking about how he, as the richest man in Africa, he needs to obtain 35 passports to travel around Africa, while, you know, a Frenchman that is the CEO of Total doesn't even need as much. In fact, sometimes he mentioned that, you know, to obtain, 35 visas, not passports. To obtain visas, they ask him to provide his bank statements, and that's the richest man in Africa that we're talking about. And so, as a matter of fact, I don't think trade can, and that's a statement that's credited to Akinwumi. He mentioned that trade is not done in a vacuum. It's people that trade. So apart from the fact that you need connectivity, you also need people to be able to freely move from one place to another if you want to encourage trade. So Africa cannot sit down and say they want to encourage trade when, to move to, to get a flight to, for example, Kenya is probably more expensive than a flight to somewhere in the Middle East, right? So as African countries, if this treaty is to give, all the member countries benefits that it has, we need to seriously think about connecting our people better. And brings me to a report around the Africa Visa Openness Index survey that I just came across, and I thought to share it because it shows that there's some progress, right? In Africa, about the highest index score of 0.485 was achieved in 2023. And how did they get this score? They look at countries that allow, travels without visa or with visa on arrival and the rest. And over time, a lot of African countries are beginning to open up. As a matter of fact, Rwanda, Benin Republic, Gambia, and Seychelles are the only African countries that have visa-free travel to everybody in Africa. So to those countries, you don't need to even get visas, just drive in or fly in, right? And ECOWAS was also given a high score of 97% because ECOWAS is a region where you can travel to different countries also with your ECOWAS passports. But like I said, more still needs to be done in terms of free movement of people if we're to encourage trade under the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. So just to wrap
up, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm wrapping up. So just to wrap up, yeah, so like I said, we need to basically feed our people before we then start thinking about exports. And these things need to be done creatively. We need to have private-public partnerships that are in the interest of the people and not in, minority interests. And we need to target infrastructure in terms of road, decongesting the ports, and also security challenges that hamper the free movement of food from rural areas to where they're needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We're running out of time. I must say thank you again. Please feel free to put direct comments, reply with emoji to Emeka Chime for that very, very useful, very eye-opening presentation. Like I said, we're running out of time and we still have Madam Yawa before I see all the hands up and I see in the chat that many people want to speak. But please and please, let us get Madam Yawa's presentation and then we will open up the floor and we all can then converse and then get to somewhere, get a very strong takeaway from the conversation today. Madam Jacquelyne Yawa, the floor is yours. You have the next 10 minutes. If you can do it in less, that would be great.
That's fine. So thank you very much. And once again, for the opportunity. I am not going to be repeating a lot of things that have been said, and I am just going to go through to the recommendations on most of the things and just focus on what it is that I really want to bring out. So to be fully declared, I don't speak the English. What I do is I totally tell everybody this. I am a market woman and I see things from those lens. I'm an advocate and that's the perspective that I'm going to see things from. So I'm going to be looking at opportunities that we can unlock, and it's for us to step back and see whether we can do all of that. So we've heard all the challenges that agriculture in Nigeria comes with, low productivity, lack of access to financing. We've heard all of that. So I would not go to that. And of course, there's one bit that was stepped off, which is the quality of the produce that we do. Does it meet international standards? So I have worked for a multinational, and I always say to people, produce for the market. So you don't start with yourself in mind, you start with the market. So there's also the challenge around quality. I won't be going so much into all of this because I've got very limited time. So what I will do is just pick out the key things that are important to me. So why agriculture? Agriculture is a low-hanging fruit, and I've always believed that it is one of the things that can catapult us from a consuming economy to a producing economy. All we need to do is build ecosystems that are functional and work for it, because it contributes 21% of our to Nigeria's GDP. There's something going on. Someone's writing, I don't know what that is, and employs over 70% of the rural population. And I wanted to note this. I know Emeka said the service industry employs more people now. I don't know if people live more in the urban areas, because I always say to people, Nigeria is not Lagos. It is the corals of Guyuk and the creeks in Bayelsa. So trade security, how do we balance domestic consumption needs with international trade, especially now that we're currently experiencing a food crisis bill? And Emeka had mentioned we're in a deficit position as it relates to our balance of trade. So my own question would be, so why agriculture? Let's do a comparative analysis. Why do we need to balance it? truth be told is you can't stop people from exporting. You can't stop people from importing, except of course if there is a ban on certain things. And protectionism and nationalism is something that we should do around agriculture. And so I was very sad when I saw that there was a lift on import duties for imported food. If it's interim, it's fine. But someone on the platform, whilst we were discussing, said interim or long term, it is destructive to our own local economy. So the music industry, the film industry, the banking sector has done this. Truth be told is that our local consumption for the music and film industry is what has fueled the global success that we have today. Same thing with banking. Look at Access Bank, look at Zenith Bank on the African continent. It is because some people have been tenacious enough to say, look, we will do this. I agree that all of these is in the service-related industry, but take film, for instance. If they had not gone through that metamorphosis that they had to go through, they wouldn't be where they are today. So the economic implications of this is someone's mentioned it earlier on, infrastructure needs, as well as policy support. I think the first speaker mentioned the ATA from Akinkunmi. I am still a big advocate of that. I do not agree that it should even be tweaked. Rather, we should actually implement those things. So for us, it is the question of when a new government comes, you jettison it. See what was done with cassava. Look at what President Obasanjo did with cassava. If we had followed in that trajectory, I don't think we will be here today. There's something going on the screen. I don't know where this is coming from, but I would just move with it. So I'll push off all of this because it's not necessary, and I'll go straight up to the three things I like to do. So I like to pick three things. So I'm picking cocoa, I'm picking cassava, and I'm also picking, I don't know what this mark is. And I'm also picking the hides and skin, which is leather. So of course, we all know that cocoa contributes about 10% of the non-oil exports in Nigeria. We currently are the fourth in the continent, and the prices last year and the year before has been very good. It's been a boom. But the question would be, how sustainable is that? And are we ready? And then what I'll do is do a comparison of other countries, and we will ask ourselves, what is the potential in here? What is it that we can do? And one thing I would like to stay here is I had challenges with data. So MBS gives you a different data, different websites give you different data. So for instance, here you can see CBN said we exported 786. But if you go somewhere else, I saw it was 800 and something million dollars in terms of cocoa export earnings for Nigeria. So this is cassava. This is the one that I enjoy the most. Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world. Subsequently, we would see how we compare to other countries and what we have earned. I don't think our challenge, I agree, our challenge is production, yield, but I think IITA has done a lot with cassava. And if we're the biggest and the largest in the world, I do not understand why our earnings is just a meager amount. You'd see it later on, I think 100 million in a market with potential for much more. So the next would be leather. This
Why
is
you
not...
change to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Can you stop sharing and reshare so we have a clear screen? We would not want to miss out on some of this data. So
okay.
you can now
Okay, that's fine.
that is fixed.
Let me do that now. Okay.
And while you do that, please, let's keep the chat going. If there are questions.
Okay, so the next would be, I'll pick the hides and skin industry. So here we are. We're not top of it, but at least it is something that I wanted to do because sort of it represented the northern parts of the country. Cocoa represents the west. Cassava, more or less, the east and the south. And cassava can actually be grown everywhere. So I was trying to do DEI here. You can forgive me for that, but I felt it was important. So the derivatives that we can get from all of our produce. So someone has mentioned that most of our things go out in the raw form, and therefore we can't continue to act in that manner. Someone mentioned about Ghana, and you'll see why Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire earn more from their cocoa is because they have built industries around those farming communities. you know, to tap into it, to take it from one, not just in its raw state. So I know there is a woman in Ibadan or your state that does sorbitol from cassava, and she's the one that is supplying Nestle. So that's the kind of thing. But she did that. She raised herself from the ground. I don't know which language to use now. By the straps of her boots. That's what she did. And if you don't have that tenacity, if you don't have that passion, you will definitely, you know, drop your boots and say, look, I can't do this anymore. And you know that the millennials, let's be real with ourselves, and Gen Zs don't have the kind of tenacity, or they have a different kind of tenacity than we did. And so we really need to put some thoughts into those economic agro-processing hubs around our agri-producing communities. So there's several derivatives that can be gotten from cocoa, but Nigeria just, you know, processes only 30% of it. And you can see for anybody that is here, so my own task here is to open your eyes to the opportunities in this ecosystem for you to begin to look at it and how can you unlock it. It is mentioned that by 2026, the chocolate market in Nigeria will be 678 million naira. Sorry, $1 million. So do you want to be part of that? What is it that you can do? I know some people have been in this space for a while, but then you can also come into that space. Beyond chocolates, there are other derivatives, you know, like the cocoa butter, the cocoa powder, and the cocoa liquor that is used in confectioneries and bakeries. And that's what you can actually export, because what is happening is we send out the raw cocoa to Europe or to Malaysia, as the case may be. They process those, and those companies in Malaysia are actually owned by people in England, and then they process, and it's that processed products that they then now send to America, because I think America is the biggest in terms of cocoa, in terms of the chocolate market. But those cocoa pods or those cocoa beans are actually brought from Nigeria. So let's look at cassava. Cassava has fantastic derivatives. You've got starch, you've got sorbitol, you've got so many of them. And what I just want to note out here is that it is mentioned that the derivatives and the market value is 1.8 billion. Cassava starch alone, you know, for industrial pharmacies. And this market in Nigeria is 6.8. So this is where that question comes in, balancing. And I don't have the figure. Our market there's a potential for starch for 6.8 billion. It's projected by 2028. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, Akwana Atashi. Before you know it, that's how they say it in Yoruba, isn't it? Before you know it, 2028 will be here. I remember when they said it 2020, by the year 2000, we're in 2024. So this is the opportunity that is in the market for cassava starch. Are we going to continue to just consume cassava, or can we make the most of it? The same thing is applicable to hide and skin derivatives. Most of it ends up as leather. In the Nigerian market, it's a 1.5 billion footwear market. And according to NEPC, 900 million of that footwear, out of that footwear alone was accountable for that. Something that was very interesting to me was when I saw that traditional medicine was also involved in hides and skin. But the thing about this hides and skin is we always joke around where I worked before in Nersa, where they would say Pomo versus Louis Vuitton. I hope I pronounced the Louis Vuitton correctly. We eat so much Pomo. That's the truth. Pomo is actually more expensive than leather for exports. You can check that out. So I'm just going to do another component to all of this when we are balancing local consumption with export is waste management. If we do not factor this in properly, we might not even be having this produce in a few years because of greenhouse emission. So it is important that we also look into that. So in Nigeria, approximately 6.4 million tons of cassava peels are generated annually. you know, and the cocoa pods, about 75% of them are classified as waste, amounting to about 2 million tons annually. So for me, I'm saying to us here, what can we do with this waste that we can convert into Naira and Kobo? It might even be for exports. Are we even knowledgeable enough to take advantage of those things? So analysis of Nigeria's production with other countries, this is what I really wanted to look at, and then go straight to the implementation. So comparing Nigeria's production volumes of cocoa, cassava, leather with other countries. So if you can see here, I've got, so let me just do the summary. I've got the summary table. So so you can see here, the annual export for Nigeria is 300 metric tons. We earned about 700. Cote d'Ivoire was, these are all CITP, please, 2 million metric tons, over 5 billion was earned in dollars. So my question would be, yes, if you want to do a straightforward extrapolation, it is still too much. I am very sure, let's take it, we're closer to Ghana. Let's leave Cote d'Ivoire out of it. We're closer to Ghana in terms of cocoa. It is because Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana have provided those agro-processing hubs to work with them such that they're getting better value. So long and short of it is that we need to transition from just being a baseline produce exporting country into a value add. And that can only happen if there's an enabling environment, both from the federal government and the subnationals. I know my recommendations were mostly for the federal government, but I know that the subnationals can take advantage of this. Look at cassava, 59 million metric tons, world leader, but we actually earned only 100 million in terms of exports. I know the rest would have gone to food, so that's the food security component of it. But a lot of that would also have gone to waste. Thailand only does half of what we do.
Pardon me to also wrap up in the next 2 minutes, if you can, please.
I can do that. So let me go straight to my recommendations. So first, improve infrastructure for local manufacturing exports. We've got all of that story here. So my own question would be, please, companies, MDAs cannot continue to work in silos. There's a need for them to work collaboratively to ensure that the ease of doing business is better. So I heard the story where someone said, I'm coming to sink a borehole in a village. And the person said, sink a borehole in a village. I don't need your borehole. All I need is for you to give me a feeder road. You give me the feeder road and I will sink 20 boreholes. That was a farmer who knew what he was saying. So enhancing market access and networking for SMEs in agriculture. So Mrs. Elyon and all the other agricultural and agro-processors, this is what they're looking for. Trade fairs, networking partnership programs, digital market access, and capacity building workshops. And then finally, promoting local content utilization in Tier 1 and Tier 2 manufacturing companies. So the large multinationals should use local content. So you should be using sorghum or using Nigerian maize rather than import maize from the US, because it is only then that you can develop local capacities to meet international standards. I know Guinness, where I worked, did a brilliant job with this. I don't know about other multinationals. And then, but one thing that was lacking was on the other African markets, and I'm glad the tax master is, when I say tax master, I don't mean it in that sense. The tax expert is here. So Emeka, when you're having those conversations, tell them that there should be incentives for local use of local raw material in manufacturing, whether it's for an SME or it's for a Tier 1 company. Ghana was getting incentives for all of Ghana and Kenya, and every other African market was getting some form of rebate for using local content. But Nigeria was not benefiting from that. We pushed and pushed and pushed, but nothing happened. The only way you can actually grow the manufacturing sector, for them to plow back, is for us to support the people that do the actual production, not the paper, not portfolio contractors or companies. On that note, I'd like to say thank you. And these are my references. I'm sure I'll share these later. Most of these are not my thoughts. I just put them together. Once again, thank you for listening. Hope I didn't rush you through.
We should apologize for rushing you through. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that everyone will get the slides when we send out the email. Thank you so much indeed. I see all the hands are up, and this is where we also get to start that conversation among ourselves. So we'll take it in this order. Dr. Ikechi Agugba, you had mentioned in the chat you wanted to share. That will be followed by Efe Hussein, followed by Ambassador Ali Nda, followed by Bosun Sholari, and then Dr. John Isimede. I'll take it again. Dr. Ikechi, you go first. Ese, you come next. Ambassador Ali Nda, Bosun Sholari, and John Isimede. We'll take that conversation just after this short break. So if you want to drink a cup of water, and thereafter, other hands that come up or other people in the chat will then be called up.
Would you like to have your business products or services featured during our Tachuk webinars or inside our webinar flip? If so, we have a great opportunity for you to get your products or services in front of a large audience. You can place your adverts to be featured live during our Talking Truth webinars, which we also live stream on Facebook. Our Tachuk webinars host a huge audience from across the globe. Each year, our webinars run from February to November on the first Saturday of every month at 5 p.m. West Africa time. Placing your ads in our webinar flip books will expose you to a global audience and extend your reach, as our flip books are sent to our entire database of contacts and shared on our social media platforms. We have limited spaces, so make sure you get in touch with us to book your space. Please email femi@femiboyede.com for further details.
All right, Dr. Ikechi Agugba, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I want to give kudos to the speakers. They've spoken very well, but I was just saying in my mind, all these beautiful and wonderful strategies, models, frameworks to revamp Nigeria's agriculture sector. As you know, like, I'm an agriculture person, from my childhood days at the University of Nigeria, and I started as a child, so I went in for agriculture. I am not a product of afterthought. I have a PhD in agriculture, and I did my postdoc, and I've lived in Nigeria. I've lived in South Africa. I've lived in fact, I do a lot around, agriculture. And we've talked about, public-private people's partnership, public-private, and all those PPP things, and which is also good. But we need to practicalize. When you look at those, the farmers that have spoken, you see that these are real-time issues. We need to start implementing them. I love what Jacquelyne said. Jacquelyne was talking about ecosystem, looking at the system issues. When we talk about food and agricultural systems, we are looking at production, and it's like a world of its own. We are looking at crops, livestock, forestry, fisheries, and then you now get into processing, and then which is another aspect of its own, and you are dealing on supply and value chains, and then you get to distribution and then consumption. What happens with all these things? So I think we really need to form like a stakeholder group. Like I normally say things in that way. She mentioned about indigenous, those local. Even as a university teacher, I work a lot with young people, and I developed a strategy.
I'm afraid, Dr. Ikechi, we
recently after my long years in.
Okay, we hear you.
Sorry about that.
So, bullet point, yes.
Sorry, So that strategy is a brain reengineering concept and reimagination, which structure. And then, of course, youth engagement in agriculture is very important. I've consulted for the UN twice. And when I consulted for them, we discovered that young people, their role in driving transformation in food systems cannot be overemphasized. So they have a very important role to play. So the brain reengineering strategy resonates around 5 pillars. The first one, as I conclude, perception change. Then second aspect is on ideation and entrepreneurship, which has been lacking in the global south, especially in Africa. Africa is the future. Then the fourth pillar is technology integration, amalgamation of different technological solutions. Then of course, then we get to sustainability and circular economy, like it's like an antidote to manage all those waste issues. How do we utilize waste? How do we use them for planning? Then finally, social equity in public policy. So I have to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And could you put this on the in the chat also? I think this is a very strong, very well articulated points. Please put them in the chat. Ife, we pass the mic to you right away.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to all of our presenters. It has been very educative to me. I just want to bring out a point that some of us might know and some of us may not. Going from one of the last points that the last speaker just made on youth involvement in agriculture. And then I was concerned, it actually caught my attention when the first farmer lady spoke. Well done, Ma, for what you do. Now, please let us note, our youths are being directed, attracted towards digital. There's this thing going on in the world, attracting youths towards digitalization, STEM, and all those things. It is good, but please let's note the danger. The danger is this same aspect of digitalization and technology that our youths are being attracted towards is the same aspect that AIs are being built for. Let's note that a time will come, if things continue the way they are going, our youths will wake up suddenly and realize that they are useless. And I see that there's a lot of encouragement to push them into that digitalization world. And it's concerning because if agriculture before now in our generation has been the largest employer of labor, we are beginning to turn that around, and it is looking as though it is becoming a reality, strong reality, that our people are out of agriculture. Tomorrow, when I say tomorrow, of course, I'm speaking, tomorrow, our youths would wake up one day and they will be replaced by robots, and they wouldn't have learned any other skills. Please, let's note there is need to have this awareness out there so that we can drive our youths back to being productive, learning some other things and getting involved in our agricultural value chain. That's what I wanted to bring out. Thank you very much. Very interesting session.
Many thanks, Efe. Thanks for keeping it very punchy also. So we'll pass the mic to Ambassador Ali Ndaabu.
Thank you, my brother, for giving me the opportunity. Again, my own is I want to make a protest. You see, all these good policy decisions, policy recommendations that have been made by our eloquent speakers. I think we need to find a way of bringing all of us together, not in the e-room now, but in the physical room, that we speak to people like this. Well, am I a policy maker? I don't know, because I'm in government, but you see, when we need our ministers to be in a room to understand the content of what is being developed here today. And I think basically what I wanted to say, I love the last speaker. And in fact, I was telling to my wife, you must become a farmer. When I listen to her, you must become a farmer. You must listen to this lecture, and I really appreciate everything. And I think what I wanted to add is that is already on the chart, where I said balancing domestic consumption with international opportunities requires a holistic approach, right? To integrate policy framework, developing policies that support both domestic food security and export growth is very essential, right? Mr. Boyede also talked about, she also talked about value addition. That is the element that we're looking for. You cannot, every day we keep talking about value addition, export of raw materials. We need value addition to augment everything we do to get the value we are looking for. And then maybe lastly, and I like bringing this point each time we do this webinar, how do we engage the private sector? The private sector, engaging the private sector through a PPP partnership can bring the investment technology, expertise, driving growth in both domestic and export-oriented agriculture is very critical. And I think those are the points I wanted to raise. And I want to say thank you very much. And then my protest stands that this thing should, we're done with e-web now. Let's go to classroom. And I think I challenge Olufemi Boyede to please bring us together, sit with the ministers, talk to these people, policy makers, and I'm sure people like John, they will even slap some of them in that hall. I thank you very much for
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your
Guys.
Excellency. Sorry, Sheyi, let me just respond quickly to that.
I give you 1 minute, sir.
Yes. So it's fantastic that you are actually putting our thoughts. Business Day and Talking Trade are already planning a physical national policy dialogue to take place in Abuja sometime later in the year, probably in October. But I'm responding because I want to put you in the seat. For 2.5 years, Talking Trade has been a private sector driven platform that has been holding regular dialogues. So it's not how do we engage the private sector, it's now how do we engage the public sector. And we are lucky to have you here. Now you know ahead of time that we are planning a physical meeting. We will please appreciate it if you will join us in the planning and take responsibility for reaching out to the public sector, because there is no point preaching to the converted. Everybody on this call today is feeling the pain. They are already converted. They know what to do about agriculture, about farming, and what have you. But how do we get those who should enable? They are the enablers. How do we get the enablers to come into the room, sit, listen, and act on the suggestions that are given to them? So, Your Excellency, we will continue the discussion after the webinar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ali and Mr. Femi Boyede. We'll take Bosun Sholari, John Isimede, and then we come back to Femi Boyede if you want, or any of the speakers. We've been privileged to hear from Madam Elyon, Mr. Ahmed Adigun, Emeka Chime from PwC, and Madam Jacquelyne Yawa. So we'll take Bosun Sholari, John Isimede, and any of the speakers can then give direct feedback. If you can turn on your video, please, we would appreciate that. Madam Bosun, the floor is yours.
Yes, good evening and thank you so much. My name is Bosun Sholari. I am a farmer and I'm an agro processor. Now I'll start with I only picked the answer with the highest mark for number 2 because that was the only answer. And it's been said here today, if those who advise government on policy decisions, we will never get it right. And that's why recently, non-oil practicing exporters, that we all had issues with NAFDAC. When they will go and make policies that is totally anti-people, then is it that Mr. Emeka, who said there should be no export, is it that there is no food? People cannot afford it. In my Bagada here, there is yam in the market, but I cannot afford 7,000 naira yam. And why is yam expensive? They are going to pay. Transportation is expensive. He pays extortioners on the road to get to there. So by the time they get here, the prices are too high for people to be able to afford. That is a problem with food. It is not that there is no food. 2, then my thoughts. I can authoritatively say here that most people who invested in agriculture, like me in 2017, we did because the likes of during Adeshino, they were promoting agriculture as a replacement to the oil sector. So when a government wakes up today to say I must be feeding Nigeria, is that why I invested my money? And then there are people who are talking about policies are supporting such things. Then to go from there is to say, then government is only trying to punish those they can get. In Yoruba Palace, we say, so it means that because they can exert power over me because there's nothing I can do, then they can make policies that inflict on my investment and put me at a loss. Then lastly, I want to say that, just 1 second, I'll get my paper right. Lastly, I want to say, one of the major reasons to secure the lives of people. When people cannot farm, in 2015, up till what time, we didn't have issues with food security. But it is because a lot of people have been killed on the farm. A lot of people cannot go to the farm. I have stopped going to my farm since 2021. It was a farm I bought with millions of money. Now, even since last year, 3 years ago, I've been in Owode Egba in Ogun State. I cannot get people to use it free. People. So when we are talking about government should do their duties where security of lives and properties are guaranteed, then people can go to the farm. Lastly, on importation of foods, we will only scatter the worst, what has gone worse to become worse. When we import invested that are still hanging on in the farm, the products of because of what I have reeled out earlier, and so they will not be able to sell in the market as well. Because if they bring rice, like we're hearing at 40,000, the man who is going to farm rice here can never sell because of labor, like the first speaker said, because of all those extortion.
I'm afraid, Madam Boston, your network is messing up a little bit. So I think the point is clear, and I don't want to repeat it. Let me move very quickly to Dr. Johnny.
Properties that would they all be wasted? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madam Bosusolari. We are in the struggle together.
Mr. Isimede, if you can keep it in 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Even in less than 2 minutes. Thank you. Very happy with the participants and all those who have made one presentation or the other. My question is to my friend, Olufemi Boyede. Food security is a very strong foreign policy. Do we have a foreign policy? If the answer is yes, do we have a foreign policy strategy? If we do, why the importation of food? Under 1 minute, I will give you.
I like that.
At independent Nigeria no university. Today we have more than 250 universities and over 200 faculties of agriculture. Why the import culture that we're importing food? Export is not a priority in Nigeria. Import is on a single window. The second one is that we can produce maize in my village in 70 days. 36 states, 48 ministers, 774 local government council. Nobody has come out to tell Mr. President we can produce maize and save this country. Number 3, why the question of ban by Emeka? Well, we have signed ECOWAS, we have signed the WTO and order. Why are we afraid to engage the world? Why is it that Nigeria, after agreement, we go and sit at the back and be crying foul? Number 4, why do we close borders? Which is contrary to ECOWAS agreement and WTO. Food is coming in because we have devalued our currency. The 1 naira in the 70s was 1,000 sefa. Today it's almost 4 to 1. Number 5, this food issue did not start today. By 1972, we had the food program. 76, Operation Feed the Nation back land. And we destroyed the commodity board and destroyed the agriculture. The whole issue started in 1963 after regional buried agriculture in 1986. Number 6, what is food safety? Where are we on General Obasanjo's food security program? The UNIDO project of 2003. Number 6, sorry, number 7, we were in Maputo in 2003, and it was agreed that 12% of our budget to be used to run agriculture. Have we ever put, for the past 20 years, 2 to 5%? And we are the giant of Africa. We are in charge of ECOWAS. We are the charge of Africa. We 2% to 5% feed 250 million people alone. What is the budget in a country of 2% plantation agriculture, 80% commercial farming, and 80% of subsistence agriculture? Is that what we should rely on? Number 9.
Okay, if you can wrap up number 9, sir.
All right, number 9, that is 10. Number 9, where are we? What are the MDAs doing that they are now policing instead of assisting? Number 10, agriculture can never go forward if we don't use the 3 tiers of government. Agriculture to be in the rural areas. Look at the importation figure for rice, fish, and all that. Now we have to add maize. I will give you the example, which is the final one, of what Unilever, Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, suffered from this bad policy in 1991. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And it's really incredible to see that we are all taking notes and we can all circle back to points that have been raised. I really appreciate that. So this is where we'll come back to our guest speakers to give direct feedbacks if they want to. Just a few seconds for them to catch their breath, and then they can respond as they wish among themselves. Who wants to go first, please?
Okay, because we have actually exceeded by 26 minutes thus far, I will not be saying any last thing, but just to encourage my colleagues. I can see quite a number of hands up there. Imeya Alhaji Mohammed Kotagura, Dalatu Hamza, Gani Opewu. I beg of you, moderator, and I beg of all of us participants, please, can we allow these people to take 1 minute each? And can I beg them, please, 1 minute to be 1 minute? We really will feel bad if your hands have been up for this long and we didn't give you the opportunity. After that, my colleagues, co-speakers can go ahead and say their rounding up notes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dalhatu, do you want to go first? If you're mute.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Am I heard?
Yes, please.
Or even rather, yes. Okay. Actually, I have 2 or 3 points to make. The first point is the topic itself, even though timely, but I want us to understand that we can actually clearly demarcate export products and local consumption product in agriculture, because to some extent they go hand in hand, but most of the things we export are not the basic consumables in Nigeria. That is 1. 2, as long as we want to export any product, if we don't have agricultural processing zones like other countries, a lot of Nigerian produce, farm produce in particular, are being processed within the West African sub-region and labeled for that country, while in the real sense of the word, it is our farmers that farm this produce. And the value chain of this product goes to somebody who was sleeping during the farming season. I'll give an example. For the past 6 years, we've been trying to export sesame seed to Turkey. It is almost impossible because Nigerian sesame seed, even though produced in Yobe, Maiduguri, and the rest of the few other states, is being exported via Cameroon, via Ghana, via Cote d'Ivoire and so on. So we need to look at, as one of the speakers said, the government policy. What has NAFDAC got to do with export while we have Nigerian Export Promotion Council?
Thank you.
These are things we have to really fight and work on. And wherever there is the weaknesses, we approach the government. For the last 3 years, we've been trying to organize what we call AMITEX to bring home to farmers who should know what they need to do. AMITEX is agricultural mechanization expo. We are doing the third in November this year. And we're doing it in hand with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. I'm one of the organizers. We have a committee under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to bring home all the farmers, states, governments, all the stakeholders, so that we need to understand, for example, simple farming of tomato. Tomato is something you can farm throughout the year. Why should a basket of tomato at one point in time reach up to 180,000 naira locally? And at the same time, a lot of tomatoes are being thrown out or thrown away in the dust.
Please, sir, can we round this up so that the other people can also have one minute?
So
finally, I just didn't want
to
not call you guys up.
Basic primary processing industries in agriculture in order to enhance our export products from Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amzad. Mr. Gani Okewo, if you can do it in 1 minute, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Basically, I want to agree with the idea of a food ecosystem. And what we are doing, I am the CEO of Greater Radio Investments Limited, based in Ekpe, Lagos. And what we are doing, we call it Agri-Trail Trade Center. And the whole idea is to, because agriculture is practiced at the local level, and it is integrated. It is not a monoculture thing. People do so many things together. So we want to bring these integrated farmers with my experience having managed a Shanghai farm in Oyo State and run through about 16 value chains of agriculture. We can bring farmers at the local level together into a central food system hub in every local government, and then bring the machinery to that center, bring the inputs to the center, bring the fertilizers, the feeds to the center. The farmers, we have also developed a technology to such that as the farmers do their thing, they with the technology, and eventually we support them with extension support. They bring the produce back to that center where value addition is done and centrally packaged, rather than each farmer doing his own thing and going to NAFDAC. We do a central packaging for the entire produce that comes out from that local government. And it becomes something that is exportable and marketable nationwide and African-wide. So basically, that's the kind of thing that we need to put in place. The palliative, if they put 1 billion in every local government to do that, it will go a long way to ameliorate the challenges of farmers in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Mohammed Katangora, please, 1 minute from there.
Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Oga Boyede and my Oga, Dr. Osemedi, for the opportunity. I think I don't want to waste time because a lot has been said. But I want to encourage us on this fiscal meeting because a lot we need to sit down and discuss. But most importantly, in the course of our discussion, we tend to forget one issue, and that is the informal trade that is taking place across our border. Just last week, I had a committee that went around, and I'm the president of National Share Product Association of Nigeria. And I'll just find out what is happening. Across the border, there is a particular border that we saw 200 trailer loads of our share not getting out of this country. And unfortunately for us, the share note is not in the prohibitive list, but nobody is taking data. We need to work on that. Above all, by the time we're able to meet fiscally, we should come out with policy that will engage government. Believe me, the only way we can change the narrative is by making sure that the private sector is put in the driving seat. We just have to do it against all to ensure that, yes, we drive this sector, the export. To me, export is a child of necessity. We really need to export because we have to earn the much desired foreign exchange. So it's very key. And then when you look at, you try to aggregate all what has been said, one thing is common. We need a common facility center. In a simple term, we need structure and infrastructure. So long as we want to do marketing both within and out, so that so long as we want our product to be out there. The infrastructure at both the rural and urban setting is the common facility center for the women at the grassroots. And then we'll also, for the community, we need to have community-based aggregation centers. So what is missing, what is fundamental in this part of it is that we tend to neglect this basic infrastructure. So please, I encourage you to go ahead with that. Call us, let's sit down and develop a workable document that will implement with the support of the government. But believe you me, it's the private sector that will change the narrative. So I said I will not talk much. I appreciate the opportunity given to me. And I hope we'll continue to meet so that until we are able to get the desired result. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And thanks to everyone for staying through and for remaining on the call. Now we pass the mic to our guests, to our speakers. I'll start with Mr. Ahmed Adigun. I see your hand is raised. And then we can move to Madam Jacquelyne and then Madam Elyon.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, I'm just a bit disturbed. Like almost everyone here, we are practically saying almost the same thing. Like everybody keep on saying ecosystem. And I wonder, who are the policy makers? Let me just say this. I think the government has to be very, very intentional when it comes to agriculture. And as I have said, I said in my other space that if we go by our current process of doing things in Nigeria, the entire 2025 budget, put it in agriculture, it will still be a failure. The real farmers will understand what I'm saying here now, that some of us, it is not even about the funding sometimes. I've told you, I brought in the biggest combined harvester to this country, and we cannot use it to work because wood combine will go to 1 hectare, 2 hectares, 3 hectares. The cost to move them to that place is too much. And that is why government needs to be very intentional. You have to do what is called farm estates, put in mechanization. You see, people also need to understand agriculture is not poverty alleviation scheme. You cannot continue to tell people who cannot barely feed themselves anytime there is food scarcity, you tell them go and farm. Let me give you a life experience from one of my Australian farmer. We were discussing 3 days ago, and he told me that he's cultivating 2,000 hectares of wheat. And I was like, how do you do it? Only 4 people are working on that farm. Only 4 people. And his yield is almost 5 tons per hectare. I want any farmer, despite having, if you want to do that 2,000 hectares in Nigeria, you will need close to like 300 people to work on that farm. And at the end of the day, they will hardly get 2 tons per hectare or 3 tons. So it is not just about saying a lot of people, you should jump into agriculture and everything. While I was on this space, one of my cousins was with me, and he was like, all his agri practical in school are old and cutlass. A federal university in Nigeria has over 10,000 hectares of farmland. They had a combined harvester. The combined harvester is more like a showroom. The boy was telling me that it has never been used on the farm. In fact, they don't even have a farm they are going to use it to work. So until we change our policy, and look at it, federal government is doing a program with some states, and I would not like to start pointing them. And you see the process they are doing the soya beans, and I was telling them, you are still planting soya beans by this period, that you yourself, you know that the chances of you getting the appropriate yield is low. They said, they need to do it because they have to write a report, which means even if the project fails, they don't really care. But it has to be, they have done it and they have taken pictures. So we both federal government, both states, let's even say we have 774 local government. Let each local government create 10,000 farm estates. Private investors who knows that, if my tractor is here, it's going to make nothing less than 3 to 5 million per tractor, because there is plow to do, there is harrowing to do, there is planting to do. And one thing majority of us don't know is that as a farmer, whatever you spend, you are not getting the raw money. What you are expecting is yield that will give you money in return. So the moment you are having a low yield, definitely it will affect. And majority of people, in one way or the other, in Nigeria, as at one time or the other, invested in agriculture, majority of them ran back because they could not make the amount of money they invested in that. And why? Because we do not have, I'll put it under infrastructure. We do not have enough machines, even the little ones that we have are at disadvantage because working in 0.5 hectares, 1.5 hectares, whereas these people can be put in a place, harmonize them together. You see people bring in machine, they will come, and before you know it, everything will start working, silos and everything.
I apologize for being rude. Let me jump in here. Thank you. Thank you very much. The point is clear. But as we wrap up, let me pass the mic to Madam Jacquelyne Yawa for our wrapping thoughts. Madam Jacquelyne Yawa, please.
Okay, so this is my wrapping thoughts. Agriculture is a business like every other business, and there are nuances attached to it. If we could do it in music, in the film industry, in banking, I believe that we're a tenacious set of people. We can replicate that in the agricultural space. A businessman, someone was mentioning, you can't stop them, or a businesswoman, you can't stop me from selling my goods to who I want to sell it to. It's not a restricted economy, it's a free economy. But there was a gentleman who mentioned something about rewiring or re-engineering of the brain. So the people aspect has got to do with, do I have an enlightened self-interest towards this nation? Am I nationalistic in any way whatsoever? Would I rather sell, locally than export? At the end of the day, it's about me paying tuition. I'm sure most of us on this call have our children in Malaysia, Singapore, Canada, America, and that's the dollar that we're looking for. If they were going to a Nigerian university and I didn't need to go to a hospital in Dubai, maybe this kind of pressure will not be there. If I was using Jordan toothpaste and toothbrush that I grew up with, maybe this won't be happening. So at the end of the day, yes, we can point fingers, but really, to be honest, sometimes I think our problem is that we're too big. Someone talked about Gambia. It's 3 million people. I don't think there's any state in Nigeria that has 3 million people. And they're exporting exclusively. So again, at the national level and subnational level, we need to take that all along, all the way to the local government. Hopefully, my final thought, the local government autonomy will bring some kind of traction at the local level. And to all of you that are in the agribusiness space, actually farming, kudos to you. It's a lot of heavy lifting, but please stay tenacious and don't give up, because it is in the process and trusting the process that the best of quality will come forward. Thank you very much.
Really, thank you indeed, Madam Jacquelyne Yawa. We really can't thank you enough for your time, and thanks for staying true. Can I pass the mic to Madam Elyon, Christiana, for your wrapping thoughts, please?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And actually, I've learned a lot today, and I'm going to take most of the points here on board. And but I want every farmer in the house to pat yourself on the back, because we've really done well. Nollywood didn't start in one day and became the big Nollywood and so on. We heard of Kosoko at one time, and we are hearing about other people right now. So I believe that with time, the family is evolving and we are evolving as well. So I know that as time goes on, things will pick up. And like someone like me, I do purely organic farming, and it's kind of one work times 10 to the person that is doing the conventional farming. So I know that it's a matter of time. Most people don't want to know what goes into organic farming. I live in Canada. If I enter an organic farm, I can spend about $500, buying organic food. So compared to if I go into normal superstore or Walmart. So we need a lot, we still need to grow, and we have a lot of learning to do. And I know we're going to get there as time, with time. Thank you very much for putting this together. This is my first time here, and I'm really, really, I enjoyed my time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much indeed, Madam Elyon, and for being a very positive encourager to many of the farmers here. Mr. Emeka Chime, someone called you the tax master. Can we pass the mic to you for your wrapping thoughts, please?
No, tax advocate, so I didn't call him tax master. I didn't give him. You're the tax advocate, and it's so good to have you here because I'm going to come knocking.
Emeka will ban export.
I mean, sorry, Mr. Femi, go ahead.
No. The floor is yours, Mr.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm not going to take too much time. I mean, also for me, it was very, very enlightening. Speaking to or hearing from, the actual farmers, and just hearing some of these very, the real issues, on ground. It was very enlightening for me. So thank you so much. I'll just say, to some of the points that came in about how we should take this to the door of the policymakers. I really encourage that, because at the end of the day, as much as we say, the private sector needs to do this, needs to do that, we need infrastructure, we need security. Somebody said they've not been to their farms since 2019 or 2020. I mean, what are we saying? We need these basic things to be put in order so that, we can go back or even be better than how our productivity was back in the day. So just it would be nice if we can have that kind of elevated engagement with the government, and maybe even physically. But thank you once again, everybody. It's been very enlightening for me.
Thank you indeed. Mr. Femi Boyede, you said you were not going to give any parting words, but just to thank our speakers, I will give you the honor. And if there are any other comments from you.
Yes. I could say that yes, a million times. I'm excited, and I'm sure that the super team is excited too. This was a wonderful session, even though it was, we've had to hurry a lot of people. We've never spent 2 hours, and now we spent 2 hours and 17 minutes, and people are still hanging on. So I want to appreciate the speakers. I want to appreciate our partners, BusinessDay, BusinessDay Media Foundation. I want to acknowledge the world's best team, Talking Trade and Investment Global. We missed 2 key members today, Lady K and Mr. Ibrahim, who are otherwise engaged. But please let it be on record that we recognize, we acknowledge, and we appreciate the efforts that you guys are putting in. I had wanted Sheyi to launch another poll, but he said technically it can be done while the meeting has already started. But from the feedback I'm getting in the back office, so to say here, it looks like we have just scratched the surface of this topic about agriculture, and we may have to have a part 2 or a continuation. And please, this is just a pre-information to our speakers. Please don't send us away if we come knocking on your doors again, because definitely, you guys have been very vocal, you have been very explosive, and you have been very, very educative. So we appreciate you. And on this note, I want to say a big thank you to, what should I call you now, Sheyi, for sitting in or standing in occupying for Lady K. And I want to say a very big thank you. And yeah, I think that's a good place to say thank you. God bless you all and see you next time.